Chris, why did you write this book now?
Well, there were three reasons, Wendy. The first reason was to tell people about ISIS, how it developed, and what danger it poses not only to Israel and the Middle East, but also to the world. The second reason was to tell people about the awful persecution of Christians going on because of ISIS, but also throughout the whole Middle East. And the third reason was to tell people and how they can prepare for the days ahead. The current days we're living in are very scary, they're dangerous, but they could get even worse. And part of the book deals with how we can get ready for those days.
Chris, this group seemingly came out of nowhere last year. Who is ISIS and what is their ultimate goal?
Well, their ultimate goal, Wendy, is to actually take over the world. And their sort of immediate goal is to set up a caliphate, and that's something they've already done. That's been a dream of Muslims for more than 100 years, so that they would establish what they call a caliphate, which is simply an Islamic empire ruled by Islamic law called Sharia law. So that's their immediate goal. They sprang out of AQI, Al-Qaeda, Iraq. And so that's how they got started maybe 10 years or so ago. But really, the roots of it, Wendy, go back to the beginnings of Islam. This is something that Islam wants to do. It wants to literally take over the world, and that's what their plan and that's what their goal is.
Chris, what about the Christians living in northern Iraq and Syria where ISIS has set up their caliphate? How are they coping?
It's very difficult for them, Wendy, and that was maybe one of the main reasons for writing the book. We had the opportunity to meet with many of these Christians who had been thrown out of their homes that they had lived in for generations, perhaps, or definitely for years. They lost their livelihoods, they lost their possessions. Let me just show you one thing. This is a camouflage New Testament by a man named Fadi, who I met. We talked to him about, he's been put on a hit list by ISIS. He lost nearly everything, and he just broke down weeping when we interviewed him one time, and he gave me this New Testament just as a reminder for me of all the tens of thousands of Christians just like him who have lost everything. They were given four choices. They could either convert to Islam, they could pay the Islamic tax called the jizya tax for non-Muslims or infidels, they could leave, or they could die by the sword. Now, given those four choices, these are what tens of thousands of Christians have been facing throughout the Middle East, and especially through ISIS. Right now, they're living as refugees in Kurdistan and northern Iraq, and this is something the church in the West needs to know what they're going through, needs to pray for them, needs to speak up on their behalf.
Well, Chris, why are we in the West hearing so little about Christian persecution in the Middle East?
I think part of it is that the Western media doesn't report on it like they should. I have had questions lately from Jewish people who have asked me, Chris, why isn't the Christian church speaking out more about the Christian persecution in the Middle East? I don't have a good answer for that. Actually, ironically, and we talk about that in the book, it's been some Jewish leaders like Round Lauder of the World Jewish Congress who have been speaking up on behalf of Christians here in the Middle East. The reason is because they know, because of the Holocaust, what happens when people remain silent in the face of these kind of atrocities.
How does Jerusalem figure into ISIS in all of this?
Their ultimate goal and destination is Jerusalem, and they would like to see Jerusalem as the capital of their future caliphate. And to do that, they obviously need to destroy the Jewish state. So this is their destination. Also talk about the many destinations that other people have. If you look at Jerusalem, you can think about it as the crossroads of both history and prophecy. For Christians are praying for the peace of Jerusalem like never before. That's mushroomed in the last 10 or 15 years. The Jews always see Jerusalem as their final destination. For thousands of years, they've been praying next year in Jerusalem, and now in the last 150 years, many Jews have come back to this land. In 1967, the city was reunified. So in many ways, we see both Muslims, Jews, and Christians see Jerusalem as their final destination. And of course, here as Christians, we say that this will be the place where Jesus Christ will come back to establish his kingdom, and that's what we're all looking forward to.
Well, Chris, how do we prepare for the dark days ahead? You talked about, these incredibly tumultuous times we're living in. How do we prepare?
The Bible says that we need to watch and pray, and I go through many things, about 10 things to do, biblical injunctions of what we can do. The first thing is to watch and pray. Also to have a kingdom perspective and understand that we can invest not only in this life, but in the next, and invest in eternity.
Chris, we appreciate you. Once again, the book is called Destination Jerusalem. You want to get that. Chris, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Wendy. Great to be with you.